Hey guys, my name is Megan McNeil, and I'll be doing my Issues in Education Daily presentation on Chapter 10 of Setting the Record Straight, and it's on dumb teachers. Setting the record straight goes into a lot of detail on this whole misconception that teachers are dumb, and it really breaks down the reasoning as to why this is a big misconception. Although this is some sort of a idea that some people bring up about education majors, it's really only broken down into two different reasons as to why people think that teachers are dumb. So what are they? The two reasons that people think teachers are dumb is because of, one, SAT scores. And two is because most teachers are women. Let's start with the SAT score difference, or ACT, because, there's two different standardized tests, right? Statistically, it's brought up that SAT scores are lower for education majors, and by the numbers, yes, that is correct. But what people fail to realize is that most of education majors actually come from a different major. They transfer over into the education field because they change their mind. And Setting the Record Straight even mentioned that most people change their major by the end of their sophomore year. So that gives people 2 whole years to change their mind about what they want to do with their life. And Setting the Record Straight even mentioned that most people change their major by the end of their sophomore year. So that gives people 2 whole years to change their mind about what they want to do with their life. But the question really is, why aren't people choosing education to start? Well, Chapter 10 explains that the people who are scoring higher on the SAT scores are pushed to go into different professions. Ones that pay more, ones that are going to have more availability, and ones that are more fulfilling. But what they realized later is that they wanted to go into education. They wanted to go into something else. But teachers tend to come from those different majors, and that's why they're seen as dumb. There's a nice little statistic that I found in this chapter as well that seemed to be buried in the Department of Education as well. This goes into the GPA averages for teachers and for non-teachers. Those who intended to teach had an average GPA of 2.88, while those who intended to major in something else had an average GPA of 2.87. However, at the end of the senior year, future teachers had an average GPA of 3.05, and those in other fields an average GPA of 2.95. But that's none of my business. I'm going to read off some more notes here real quick. Ignore my dog. More recently, researchers at the Educational Testing Service used data from the U.S. Department of Education's National Adult Literacy Surveys, or NALS, to compare actual teachers' literacy skills with those of other groups, the general public, those with a bachelor's degree, and those in other professional and managerial positions. NALS defines these literacies prose, document, and quantitative, but all involve extracting information from text and, in the quantitative section, manipulating it in some sort of arithmetical fashion. I can't say arithmetical. They say that women score lower on tests as well, but the numbers don't lie. It's said that women score lower on SAT scores than men do. However, it's only a few points lower on the SAT verbal and about 45% lower on the SAT mathematics. In various college freshman math courses, in spite of the 45% gender SAT differential, the women actually get higher grades. Let's talk to a real teacher about this, actually. I reference my twin sister all the time, but that's because she's the best teacher I know. I have her right here on FaceTime. Say hi.
Hi.
Introduce yourself.
I'm Ashley Whitmer. I'm a special ed teacher in East Tennessee. I teach special ed 2nd, 5th grade. I currently have 12 kids on my caseload, and that's pretty small for a class, so I'm very lucky. It's very fun. I wouldn't want to do anything else, even on the hard days. I'm currently in my classroom right now. But, some 8 days, I'm on a late one right now. But it's a lot of fun. I think all you teachers will enjoy it.
So, Ashley, going back to college, were you always an education major?
I was not. I started college studying psychology. I wanted to be a criminal psychologist. I wanted to question criminals during their court cases and understand really the background and what they did if they are found guilty. I realized at that point abstract minds really interest me, and but that wasn't really my calling for working with abstract minds. I found my calling later on whenever I got back in touch with a girl from high school who was in the self-contained classroom that we went to high school with. And she really made me realize that that's where I was meant to be.
And what grade were you in when you changed this major?
I was in my second semester of my freshman year of college.
Wow, so statistically, she is actually changing her major earlier than most people do, since most people change their major at the end of their sophomore year. So, Ashley, tell us about your ACT scores. Since she didn't take a SAT, she's going to talk to us about ACT.
My ACT score, I had to take my ACT 3 times. Because in order to get accepted into the College of Education, when I was going through that process, I had to have a score of 21 or higher. And I really struggled getting that score. I eventually got a 20, and they ended up consolidating my scores and taking the highest scores from each one, and I got over at that point. So it was jumping through a hoop, but test taking it just is not my forte, except if it is something that I actually am interested in. Just general tests like the ACT, I don't believe are a good measurement of a person's worth of becoming a teacher in the education field.
So since it's something that you're interested in, whenever you got to your praxis, how did you do?
Oh yeah, my praxis, gosh. I had to take 3 different ones. One for theories, where I had to, I was tested on my knowledge of Maslow's hierarchy of needs and Bloom's taxonomy, but it was mostly about Maslow. I also had to take a reading K through 6 praxis, and also one specifically for more severe and profound special education. And those ones, I almost got a perfect score on all 3 ones. I didn't even have to retake any of them. And one of them, I even went in my pajamas because I overslept, and I still scored high. Those ones, because I actually wanted to learn those things. I actually wanted to do something with those tests. They were actually something I was studying to become, rather than a general assessment like, let's say, the standardized testing that kids have to take. But that's a different subject. Something like that, I did fine with. Because, it was what I wanted to do.
I've got one more question for you, Ashley. So, has being a woman affected either your schooling or your career at any point?
Not naming any names. Maybe it's specifically a special ed, maybe it's out in the general ed curriculum too. I'm not sure, but because special ed, we're a whole different world over here. But I've noticed that male teachers, especially on paperwork, can get away with a lot more. There's not as many male teachers, so they want to hold on to those guys as much as they can, or as long as they can. I mean, my coworker, his paperwork, honestly, it could, to put it bluntly, be set on fire and be the same quality as it is now. But, I mean, he doesn't ever get anything but a slap on the wrist. We'll do better next time for it, rather than me on Monday. I'm having to go for an all-day training and miss a day with my kids just because I did something incorrectly. And I'm having to go to meetings, like newer teacher meetings, to be told that I'm doing everything wrong. I mean, I don't want to sound like I'm a terrible teacher or anything. I mean, the paperwork side of special ed is a whole different ballgame, but it's just, or I've definitely noticed that with the male teachers, they just don't really have any reprimandment. I guess that's the word for it. They can get away with anything. Really, the only thing, again, to put it bluntly, if that's allowed, really the only thing they're concerned about with male teachers is that nobody's going to try and say that they're sexually harassing anybody, and that's about it.
Oh, dang. Well, Ashley, that's all I got for you. Thank you for being in my video.
No problem.
Love you.
Love you.
So there you have it, guys. Straight from the mouth of a teacher. I sure do miss her. She's all the way in Tennessee. But to conclude this, teachers aren't dumb. And this shouldn't even be a problem anymore. Like, why are people thinking that teachers are dumber than other professions? It's not fair. And the whole gender portion of this just baffled me. I cannot believe that this is a problem still. Thank you for tagging along on my Issues of Education Daily Presentation number 2. And I apologize if I sounded like I was ranting. This subject was very not personal, but it brings my sister into it. So, family's first, right? Hope everyone enjoyed this, and kill those finals next week, guys.